Hello, friends. Thanks for joining me. Welcome to Cheap Comic Collector. This is episode number 105. Um, so today, if you saw the title, today we're going to be making a couple changes to the giveaway program. I'm going to simplify it a little bit because it's too complicated, and I'll explain after we get through the one of my reading issues here. So, first up, we have Convergence Infinity Inc. As with all the Convergence series, it's from 2015. It's a 2-issue series from the Convergence event. And I didn't like it. I'm a fan of JSA. I'm a fan of Infinity Inc. I like the characters. And this just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. The art is not good. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just not suitable for the story being told. I didn't like it. It's written by Jerry Ordway, so I thought I'd like it a little bit better than I do. Ben Caldwell was the artist, and it just doesn't work for me. You know, they lost all their powers, so they start out not in costume, so you gotta figure out who's who. And of course, because of the art, they don't look like who you think they are, who they're supposed to be. So yeah, it's just not. It just wasn't very good. You know, it starts out as kind of soap opera thing with all the different members interacting, and you know, if it was a continuing series, that'd be fine. There's a bunch of subplots and stuff, but it's not a continuing series, so it was out of place. It takes place back when Infinity Inc. had just kind of started, maybe around their 10th or 11th issue is when it supposedly takes place, it seems like. And they get the challenge, so they get their powers back. So then they put their costumes on. So the art's a little bit better once they get into costume. But then the people they have to battle is Hex. You know, when Jonah Hex, his first Western series stopped, they put him into outer space as a science fiction character, and he became just Hex. And so this is him with his crew from that reality. And, you know, I'm sorry. Does that look like it to anybody like that's Jonah Hex? It doesn't, right? I mean, maybe if it was a 60s cartoon version, I don't know. It wasn't good. It was not good. The art wasn't good. I mean, and like I said, the art's not terrible. Like this scene here, that's fine, right? That's not bad. So maybe it just would have been more suitable for a different project. I don't know. Wait a second. Did the second issue have the same artist? I'm wondering if it did. Did not. Second artist, Ben Caldwell, did the layouts, but June Brigman and Roy Richardson did the penciling and inking finishes. So, okay, so the art did improve somewhat in the second issue. It's a little more dynamic, a little less crappy, but they still drew it in the same style somewhat, which you'll see once we find Hex again. There's this version of Hex, a little bit better, but still not what it should be. So it did get better. Anyway, they resolved their differences and blah 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 blah, and then it leaves on a with Infinity Inc. getting accepted by the JSA as basically as JSA members, and that's pretty much the end of it. And of course, it ties into the regular Convergence series and so on and so forth. So, I mean, the storyline itself wasn't terrible, but there wasn't anything interesting happening. It was all just soap opera stuff with characters that normally I care about, but somehow they made me not care about them at all. So, finally ran into another lousy Convergence series. I thought I'd like that one better because it was Infinity Inc. So that was really a disappointment for me. But then we go on to Neil Adams' Skate Man. It's a one-shot from PC Comics. And I just recently got this one, so I had put this one into the boxes alphabetically with all the other unread ones. But I recently saw a video, a short on YouTube, where they were saying this was the worst comic ever created. So I had to check it out. And I wouldn't say it's the worst comic ever created. It's pretty bad, but it's not the worst. I've read personally, I enjoyed this better than I did the Convergence Infinity Inc issues. So there you go. I mean, each to his own, right? So, Skate Man is he's an expert on roller skates, and he's in this fight when it starts, and he gets hurt, and it flashbacks to his whole origin and how he became who he is, and so you think of when Dazzler first started out at Marvel, she was on roller skates. Everybody thought it was goofy. I think that's why people don't like this, because it's the same thing. He's a goofy guy in a 70s roller skating costume fighting crime, and it's just a very silly premise, right? But other than that, if you can ignore that, it's kind of a fun story. And what I was reading through it, I was like, this reads like a bad 70s movie. And so I was looking it up on Grand Comics database to see if there was any other issues, because this is the ending right here. That was actually the end of the story. And it actually says on there that in an interview, Neil Adams, and this isn't Neil Adams' artwork. He did the cover here, and that was all he did. So, and his company, Continuity Comics, was hired to adapt this from a movie script. So that's why it reads like that, because it actually is a bad movie script. And there's two stories. There's two backup stories. One's called Future World, and it's basically there's dinosaurs again on the end times of Earth, and they're trying to eat the people. They're trying to climb up this mountain to eat the people, and so they send the guy in the dirigible to go find a weapon to fight them with. Why they don't all climb in the dirigible and just fly away, I don't know if they don't explain that. And basically he finds an atomic reactor and grabs some radioactive material, and then, that's kind of the end of the story, because that's going to destroy everything. So, and then there was an ad for Gru. I don't think I ever knew that Gru started at Pacific Comics. I thought it had started at Marvel, but I looked it up. It actually had like 6 or 8 issues at Pacific Comics. So, if you didn't know that, now you know. I didn't know that. And then there's this thing called Rock Warrior, which honestly was just completely unreadable. I read about the first 3 pages and couldn't concentrate on what was going on, and just left it alone. The art was a little bit amateurish, but not terrible. I've seen worse. I've seen better. And then that's just kind of a pin-up for the Road Warrior character. It asks you if you want to see more of him, and so that was. It wasn't a great issue, but it was interesting. The Skate Man thing was interesting. I thought it was funny that I thought it read like a bad 70s movie, and then found out that it was actually adapted from a movie script. So it was interesting. So, and then let's see, that was from, when was that from? Oh, I didn't date these. I don't know when these were from. 1983 Skateman was from. And then we have a issue of Jughead from 231, number 231, and it is from 1974. I was 10 years old. So you got the usual gag cover. Ethel is dragging Jughead to prom as her date. And come on, focus for me. There we go. And it's typical Archie stuff. Looking it up, it looked like the entire issue, except for the little Jinx filler, was all done by the same guy. Somebody I hadn't heard of, but apparently a known Archie creator. And Jughead and Archie are talking about spring, and it's just a little gag story that builds until it's got like one joke at the end, and then all the stories are kind of like that. In this one, Archie is watching this girl's dog to get a date with her, and the dog runs away from him, and then so he ends up having to clean up the mess he made, and Jughead has caught the girl's dog, so she takes him out for a soda. So just typical Archie stuff. And then the next one, Jughead here's a report that the price of meat keeps rising, and there's going to be a shortage of meat. And so he goes around town and buys up all the hamburger that he can find. And it's kind of funny for Florida, because a lot of people hoard stuff because of the hurricanes and so on and so forth. So it actually struck a chord with me, because I'd go to the during COVID, I think we would go to the store and they'd have everything except for, like, all the eggs would be gone, and it's like, why is there a shortage of eggs? And it's the weirdest stuff there's sometimes shortages of lately, it seems like. But and then there's a Archie Club news and a centerfold trying to get you to sell Christmas cards for prizes, because heaven forbid they pay you. And this one was actually the best story, even though it dragged out for 5 pages. Jughead puts up a beware of dog sign, and Chuck comes along and starts laughing at it, because Hot Dog, Jughead's dog, he just lays around all the time and sleeps. So he thinks it's hilarious. It's funny. He's laughing and laughing and laughing and making fun of Jughead and so on and so forth, which is a little out of character for Chuck, actually. So, but this was probably an early appearance from him before they had settled on his character. And at the end, he goes to leave, and he trips over Hot Dog, and Jughead says, "Well, I tried to warn you." So, it's a long build up for one little joke. So, and then there's a 1-page little Jinx, nothing to write home about, and the an ad for Betty and Veronica Summer Fun. I found this one interesting just because they're playing miniature golf. I thought that was kind of cool. I hadn't seen that before. So, and this clown thing kind of looks a little bit like Mr. Weatherby. And then the last one, they tried drafting Jughead into the baseball team, because he's got this great arm for throwing peanuts and catching money out of the stands for his job. But he's just an expert at it because it's food related, and then they try to put him on the team as the pitcher, and he just sucks at it. So because doesn't have anything to do with food. So there's that. And then there's The Man Called Nova in number 17. It's got the yellow claw on the cover. And this one is from 78, I think it says. So it was written by Marv Wolfman. Illustrators are Carmine Infantino and Tom Palmer, which, pretty typical artwork for Infantino. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I can't sit down. It plays havoc. This is obviously a typical Carmine Infantino panel. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he swiped this from himself to as a panel from, like, for either the Flash or Dial H for Hero, because this looks really familiar to me. Like that's like a direct swiped panel, honestly. But I guess if you're gonna swipe from yourself, it doesn't really count. And there's an ad for the Marvel books at the time. And anyway, in this issue, Nova and Fury are strapped to a rocket. Nick Fury, that is. And Nova manages to use his powers to steer the rocket away from, I think it was the Pentagon, and into the Potomac River. So they survive just before it blows up. And then it goes into the Nova's personal life here, where his family's mad at him, and his girlfriend's mad at him, and he's just arguing with everybody before it gets back before he meets back up with Fury. And here's my favorite Slim Jim ad right there. And so they use this machine, their ESP, the SHIELD's ESP machine, to read the mind of one of the bad guys, so they know how to get to Yellow Claw's hideout. So they go undercover to infiltrate. This is them here going into a shop, and see their disguises in trench coats and hats, and you're not supposed to know that's them, but yeah, it obviously is. And they go through the process to get to the secret sea base or whatever it is, and they attack. And Yellow Claw, it's got a letters page. Yellow Claw attacks by releasing a tidal wave, which Nova tries to stop, and then Fury shows up with some kind of shield division to try and stop the tidal wave by shooting it with something. I didn't quite understand that, but basically there's a tidal wave, shoot it. So that's what they're trying to do. I would imagine it's some kind of ray guns, that it's not actually like bullets or anything, but it was just kind of hilarious. And then Nova bursts back in to fight Yellow Claw, and that was the end. The one blast from the Psycho gun will make Nova totally insane. And that was the finish. So, I don't really have a favorite out of these. None of them were all that great. The most interesting one, really, to me, was Skate Man, but that's just because they told me it was the worst comic ever printed. So, and I don't agree with that, but although the last two stories, the two backup stories, were really bad. If I had to pick a favorite, it would be either Nova or Jughead. And it would depend on my mood. Right now I'm going to say Jughead, just because it was light and breezy and a fun read. And Nova I had a hard time reading Nova, mostly because of the lettering. A lot of the lettering, this is looking bigger through my viewer here on the phone, but a lot of the lettering was kind of muddied up because it was printed so small, and it was hard for me to read some of it. So anyway, that's those. Let's get back to the giveaway stuff. Just push those off to the side for now. So we are going to do a giveaway today. So we'll be spinning this wheel. If you may notice that it has less less slots on it because I've removed everyone who's won so far. So there's been, between the wheel and the list, there's been, I think, 6 winners so far. So the changes that we're going to make is there's not going to be any more winners off of the list, because for one thing, the wheel's more fun. But the list is, I made it so that you couldn't win. I started taking names off of the wheel because of the first name that came up twice in a row, and that wasn't good. It wasn't fair. So we started removing the names from the wheel of people who have won. But if I'm going to do that and we're just going to gradually reduce the slots, then it becomes pointless to take a name off the list to make sure everybody wins, because eventually everybody will win on the wheel as well. So we're only going to have one winner for when we do a giveaway. But everybody will still win eventually. So there's that change. And then the other change is, instead of doing this multiple times a week and every time there's a read me episode or what am I reading episode, we're going to change it to only doing it once a week. And there's logistical reasons for that. Mostly it's because it's making it too complicated for me. I record I record these ahead of time. So this is actually being recorded. Today is the 24th, and it won't be played until I think the 28th is when it's scheduled for. Yeah. So this was actually recorded 4 days ago from when you're seeing it. And that's making it overly complicated for me, because some of the people, I have to wait for them to respond if they're going to send me a list or not, and because they haven't gone ahead and sent me their list, and then for an example, I think 2 of the winners, the 2 winners that have sent me a list so far have been Green Hulkster, and Easy Comic Writer. So, Easy Comic Writer actually won first, but hadn't sent me a list. And then Hulkster won, but had sent me a list. So I went ahead and pulled his books on camera. But then Easy actually won first. So if they had overlapping books, it would have gotten very confusing, because to me it would have seemed fair, because Hulkster sent me a list, Easy didn't. And it doesn't matter because they did not have overlapping books. So, but it could have been very messy. It could have looked very unfair. It could have looked not right, and plus it will also spread out the wins a little bit for me, for the cost of the postage. If I do only one a week, then I've got the time to get it sent. I've got the time to wait and see if somebody's going to respond by sending me a list or not, and so on and so forth. So we're going to do that. It's going to drag it out a little bit further than I originally had anticipated, but I think it will be a little bit easier on me to do it that way. So those are the 2 changes. We're only going to have one winner. It's going to be off the spinner wheel, but everybody's still going to be able to win. And we're only going to do it once a week, not every other episode. So, having said that, let's get to today's winner. And we will shuffle the names up a few times and click play. And our winner is... Literally Lewis, my friend. I don't believe I have a list from you yet. Let me check here. I've got one from Easy, Psychotronic, Jason, Green Hulkster, Mr. Dunn, and Brian McPhee. Those are the people who have sent me a list. So, Literally Lewis, if you're watching this, send me a list. Actually, you know what? Don't send me a list, because by the time I get it, I'll have filmed another episode of this and it'll be too late. So I'm just going to grab a couple books to send you for winning. Thank you very much. But yeah, we're just going to move on. So if you haven't sent me a list, send me a list, because these are episodes that are being filmed ahead of time. And I need that list if you want to get 10 books. If you're not sending me a list, you're not going to get 10 books. That's just the way it's going to work. So get those lists in there. Send them to me, please. And we will be back tomorrow with a... finally, we're going to get back to another short box, I believe. Actually, you saw a short box yesterday video, but those were actually filmed like a couple weeks ago. I was waiting to get caught up on the giveaway, and that's the logistics of doing this are a little bit complicated. And I got this notebook that I try to keep track of everything on, but that's why we're making the change, because the logistics aren't working. So thanks for watching, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing. Sorry if I've disappointed anybody. This is all new to me, and it's we'll get there. We'll figure it out. But so Literally Lewis is our winner. I'll be sending him a couple books, and also welcome to Kentucky Poor Box, who is now also on that wheel. He sent me his address today, and so he's on there. And I'm going to pull one of the subscriber books for him, and we'll get that sent out to them. I'm actually holding on to your guys' subscriber books. So Adventurous Joe, Jim Anderson, Brian McPhee, and now Kentucky Poor Box. I haven't sent your subscriber books yet, because eventually you're going to win this wheel as we cut down on who's won. So go ahead and send me your lists as well, because you could come up the next time I spin it. You could have come up today, and I would have had to only send you 2 books instead of 10. So send me a list and we'll get things situated. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.